This week, a group of influential lawmakers in the United Kingdom took a definitive stand against the proposed $83 billion acquisition of Warner Brother Discovery assets by US streaming giant Netflix. In a formal letter sent to the Competition and Markets Authority, also known as the CMA, these politicians are pressing for a full scale investigation. Now, while we expect there to be some hurdles to clear with US regulators at the FTC and DOJ, if we're being honest, the bigger concern here actually lies with these foreign competition authorities. Let's be honest, these lawmakers are getting it fundamentally wrong. They claim they're doing this because they want to protect competition, but they are actually ignoring the reality of the marketplace. Just look at what happened when European regulators blocked Amazon's acquisition of iRobot. They claimed it was in the good of the market, but instead, they essentially signed iRobot's death warrant. The company itself ended up declaring bankruptcy, costing hundreds of good-paying American jobs, all because a foreign regulator wouldn't let a struggling American firm find a path to stability through a merger or acquisition. And let's be real, the same risk applies here. Warner Brothers needs this transaction to occur in order to survive. And if the CMA attempts to block Netflix from acquiring these assets, the UK regulators aren't saving your favorite shows. They're potentially starving them of the much-needed capital they are in need of to exist to begin with. And from my perspective, consolidation in of itself isn't bad. It's often just the market's way of fixing fragmentation. Consumers are tired of the subscription sprawl, basically paying for a dozen different apps just to find that one movie you're looking for. And this deal could offer a massive win for consumers by centralizing top-tier content on a platform that actually knows how to deliver value to consumers.
Something new, so what should you be watching? Well, it's been a good week for Warner Brothers Discovery and Game of Thrones fans. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, a new Westeros spin-off story on HBO, pulled in 6.7 million viewers over its first 3 days. Now, we don't know the other top shows for HBO, but Warner says this is a top 3 launch for them and the number 1 launch for all Game of Thrones properties. So I suspect House of the Dragon was one of those. It was incredibly strong out of the gate, but if you watched House of the Dragon, it fizzled with fans throughout its second season. It got quite boring. The characters were indistinguishable. And Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is a very different kind of story. It follows a more beloved format. A hedge knight named Dunk protecting and guiding a child squire named Egg. It's cute. This will probably be Mandalorian and Grogu all over again if HBO can get the balance right between charm and believable drama, which there's always plenty of that in George R.R. Martin's universe of Game of Thrones. Now, this season is only 6 episodes that are about 35 minutes long in runtime. So you get the sense that this is kind of an experiment for Warner Brothers. And a second thing, quickly for your radar, since medieval fantasy is having a moment back in the sun, the Pendragon cycle is live on the Daily Wire Plus app. This is Ben Shapiro's conservative streaming outfit. It's a massive multi-million-dollar project shot in Hungary and brings to life the 1980s book series by Stephen Lawhead. It's an introduction to Merlin and early Arthurian legend as Christianity is landing in Britain in the waning days of the Roman Empire. Now, the first 2 episodes are shockingly strong. I would shamelessly recommend giving them a shot. And that's it for your radar this week. Lots of swords, lots of mud and English accents. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms on HBO from the Game of Thrones universe, and the Pendragon cycle over at Daily Wire Plus. I'm Stephen Kent, and next up we'll talk shop with James Chernowski. So, James, my question for you is, I think speaking for a lot of consumers out there who are experiencing fatigue with their subscriptions. They have so many things that they want to watch. And ever since cable TV really took a nosedive and Netflix and digital solutions broke up the market, everybody who owns any sort of IP took their toys and went to go play in their own corner. Paramount took their own properties. Peacock has begun taking some of theirs, but we're in a time of consolidation. And so with Netflix looking to bring in Warner Brothers Discovery and HBO, right now the UK is saying that this would remove and lessen consumer choice. Sarah Cardell, the chief executive of the Competition and Markets Authority, She said in a letter to Netflix that ultimately we fear this proposed acquisition will result in less choice for consumers. Do you buy that?
No, Stephen, I don't really buy that because the reality is that there's just, to your point before, I think a lot of subscription fatigue from consumers. There's something for everybody to have to go and watch. Like I think about, like, I love watching football, right? And sometimes it's on the major broadcast networks, sometimes it's on Netflix, sometimes it's on Amazon Prime, right? And sometimes it's like when you have that much information that you have to go and keep track of, it can become exhausting for consumers. So it's an illusion of choice insofar as that I think consumers don't actually want to have to go and look up where they have to go and watch everything every single time. So that's why we've seen consolidation in a variety of forms, whether it's been bundling, certain goods and services together. So we saw like Disney do this with all of its products, where now ESPN, Hulu, and Disney Plus are all one big thing. I expect that we'll continue to see similar kinds of disruption happen because consumers just want to pay one price tag for a bundle of goods, so that way they can have access to a wider array of a content library, if you will, right? I don't think that it means that there's less choice for consumers just because.
I tend to be biased in favor of, mergers and acquisitions. They generally result in lower prices for everybody. The subscribers will actually knock their price down. And what I've seen so far in this segmented marketplace is that every year they raise the price on us, $1 or $2 at a time. And before you know it, between your 8 different streaming subscriptions, you're paying, $150, every month for a lot of these different products. I like the idea of 2 of these competitors coming together and, consolidating a lot of their intellectual property, a lot of the shows that I like to watch, and taking the guesswork out of my job or my role as a consumer in watching this stuff. Like you said, I hate looking for it when I have to find where something is streaming and having to figure out where it's going to be. More consolidation, I think, is exactly what the market needs. And consumers are not going to feel a pinch by that. There's not going to be any consumer who goes, oh, I don't have choice because HBO is now part of Netflix. It just makes their life easier.
Absolutely, Stephen. You're 100% right. At the end of the day, as you just mentioned, when people are looking at their streaming subscription bill and it ends up being $150 a month or $100 a month even, that's noticeable. The whole thing that made Netflix and the streaming ecosystem so popular when it started was that it was a fraction of the cost of that. It used to be like $5 a month or whatever for Netflix. Yeah. I think back when I started with my family. And now it's like $20 a month for Netflix. And I think that consumers are looking for ways to go and save costs, as they always do, through a litany of different options in their lives. And it's just one way to do it. And nothing precludes, from this merger, should it happen, it's not like HBO is going away. But if the merger doesn't happen because, let's say, a foreign regulator tries to block it, the risk is actually quite real. We know the real effects of that when we saw the iRobot and Amazon merger get denied by foreign regulators. What ultimately ended up happening is, fast forward a short time later, and iRobot declared bankruptcy, which cost hundreds of American jobs that were right here in the United States and Massachusetts. So, HBO and Time Warner Brothers, they have a mountain of debt they're facing right now. Which is why they're looking to go and do the sale of its assets to a place like Amazon, rather like Netflix.
Well, James, I guess we'll be doing this again next week. This is going to be our little show once a week on X, focused on the consumer market for streaming and entertainment. So, James Ternowski, I'm Stephen Kent. We're the Consumer Choice Center, and we'll see you next week.